Most people think Blockbuster died because they ignored Netflix. That's not the real story. Blockbuster actually found a pivot that was working, and it was killed from the inside. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how a billion-dollar brand got trapped by its own business model, strangled by Wall Street debt, and finished off by internal politics, right at the moment it had a real chance to survive. If you're building a business right now, this story is one you cannot afford to ignore. It's a Friday night in 1998. You pile into the car, drive to the blue and yellow sign, walk the aisles scanning for the case you memorized from the TV spot. You find it, one copy left. You grab it like you won something. That was Blockbuster. That was the ritual. Then one day the sign went dark. And the story the world decided to tell went like this. Netflix showed up, Blockbuster was too slow, and that was that. Here's what that story skips. Blockbuster launched a streaming initiative before most households knew what streaming was. They had an online service that was, for a brief window, genuinely beating Netflix. They sat in a meeting where Netflix offered to sell itself to them, and passed. And every one of those decisions made sense inside the machine they'd built. That's the part nobody talks about. The real story isn't about a company that missed the future. It's about a company that could see the future clearly, tried to get there, and got pulled back by everything they'd already built. Blockbuster was founded in 1985, and from the start it was built differently. Before Blockbuster, video rental was a patchwork of mum-and-pop shops. Inconsistent, sticky-floored, handwritten. Blockbuster standardized everything. Bright lights, organized shelves, family-friendly. By the mid-90s, it was the default answer to "What do we do tonight?", a social institution disguised as a retail chain. But here's what Blockbuster was actually selling. And stay with this. They weren't primarily selling access to movies. They were selling friction. Controlled friction. The tape had to come back by a certain time or there were consequences. That pressure was a product. It drove traffic, created urgency, and generated enormous money. Late fees. At their peak, around $800 million a year. That number changes how you see everything. But here's what it funded. The leases. Thousands of retail locations, each on a multi-year lease. Rent doesn't pause when movie trends shift. Late fees weren't a side hustle. They were load-bearing infrastructure. Then in 1994, Viacom acquired Blockbuster for nearly $8.5 billion. The people running the company after this are not long-term experimenters. They are retail optimizers answering to shareholders on a quarterly schedule. This shift didn't look dramatic from the outside. Inside, it rewired everything. Think about what the late fee experience actually felt like. You loved the movie. You forgot to return it. Bad week. Now you're standing at the counter being told you owe money you weren't expecting. Low-grade shame. And it happens again. And again. Over time, a generation of customers builds one specific emotional association with Blockbuster. I love movie night, and I resent that store. You couldn't just stop charging fees without immediately replacing hundreds of millions in annual revenue, while still paying rent on thousands of buildings, thousands of employees, millions of physical inventory items. The trap was structural, baked in. So when a new option appeared, same movies, no store trip, no judgment at the counter, no late fees, customers didn't just switch. They felt like they were escaping. Netflix launched in 1997. DVDs by mail. No scarcity, no due dates, no penalties, no parking. The anti-Blockbuster. Deliberately so. In 2000, Hastings and Randolph flew to Dallas with a pitch. Acquire us. $50 million. Blockbuster passed. The world decided this proved Blockbuster was stupid. Before I tell you what happens next, drop a comment. Would you have bought it? I'll respond to every answer. Now run the calculation they had to run in that room. Netflix is a mail-order subscription business. Every Netflix subscriber is a customer not walking through your doors, not generating late fees. You'd be buying a business whose growth directly cannibalizes your core cash flow. Inside the model they were running, passing was defensible. Blockbuster didn't ignore the future. They couldn't afford it. Around the same time, Blockbuster was already exploring what we'd now call video on demand, streaming movies directly to homes. To make it work, they needed a broadband partner. They found one. Enron. That sentence sounds wrong, but Enron had a broadband division with infrastructure. Blockbuster had content relationships. Together they announced a 20-year deal in 2000 to deliver movies over the internet. Then Enron collapsed, one of the most spectacular corporate frauds in American history. The broadband partner evaporated. The streaming vision died. Blockbuster was left holding a strategy with no infrastructure to run it on. So they went back to what they knew, except the ground was shifting under their feet. Around 2004, Blockbuster made a genuine move. They launched Blockbuster Online and by 2006 upgraded it to something that was actually dangerous for Netflix: total access. The idea: order movies online, they arrive in the mail like Netflix. But when you're done, instead of mailing them back, walk into any Blockbuster store and swap them for free rentals. Instantly. Today, Netflix requires patience. Order, wait, watch, mail back, wait again. Total Access gave you the catalogue of an online service with the instant gratification of a physical store. And Blockbuster had something Netflix structurally could not replicate overnight: thousands of physical locations. The stores, which had been a liability, suddenly became an asset. A last-mile advantage. It worked. Subscribers came. Netflix felt real pressure. For the first time in years, the competitive equation shifted. But every Total Access subscriber was a subscriber not generating late fees. Every in-store swap occupied staff time and logistical cost. The pivot was real and expensive. It required accepting short-term pain for long-term survival. The CEO driving this was John Antioco. And just as momentum built, the boardroom caught fire. Carl Icahn was a major shareholder. He was not interested in a patient turnaround. The subscriber growth from Total Access cost money. Antioco believed the spending was necessary. Icahn believed it was reckless. In 2007, Antioco stepped down. New leadership came in with a different mandate: cut costs, return to profitability, stop subsidizing the online operation. Total Access was scaled back. Fees were reintroduced. The one plan that might have bridged Blockbuster to the new world was killed. Not by Netflix, not by Redbox, not by the market, by the board. Picture a ship taking on water. The crew has started building a lifeboat. It's not finished, but it's real. And ownership calls a meeting to argue about whether it's costing too much wood. By 2007, the year Netflix launched streaming. No physical media, no waiting, press play. The last structural advantage of a physical store was gone. That same year, Redbox was expanding. $1-a-night rentals from kiosks in grocery store car parks. Not a subscription, not a commitment, and you were already there picking up milk. Blockbuster was fighting 3 wars simultaneously, with none of the flexibility to win any of them. The lease obligations were fixed. You can't close 1,000 stores overnight. The costs don't stop. By 2010, it was over. Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy. $1 billion in debt. Dish Network acquired the remains in 2011 for $320 million. Stores closed in waves. Quietly. One after another. Somewhere in Bend, Oregon, one store stayed open. The last Blockbuster. People drive from other states to see it. It has become something it was never meant to be. A monument to a way of spending an evening that no longer exists. So what actually happened? 5 structural traps that closed simultaneously. A revenue model built on customer penalties. $800 million a year that funded the whole structure and made the brand corrosive. Debt loaded onto them by Viacom to finance a completely separate deal, which meant every strategic move had to be paid for first. A board optimizing for quarterly returns that killed Total Access at the exact moment it was working. A streaming partnership destroyed by Enron before it launched. And a fixed cost base, thousands of leases, millions of inventory items that made self-disruption structurally impossible even when leadership wanted to try. Any one of these was survivable. All 5 in the same critical window. That's not bad luck. That's a system failure. This is the point where I want to pause. Because if you're running your own business, even a small one, this is the trap that gets people earlier than they expect. Not billion-dollar debt. The quieter version. Not knowing what your numbers actually are until it's too late to react. Not after. If your finances are currently living in a spreadsheet you haven't opened this month, it's worth a look. Right. Back to Blockbuster. The lesson isn't adapt or die, because Blockbuster was adapting. The lesson is that the structure of a business determines what decisions are even possible inside it. Blockbuster didn't lose because they didn't see the future. They lost because their past was too expensive to leave. So here's the question. Drop your answer below. I genuinely want to see where people land. If you were Blockbuster's CEO in 2004, what's the first thing you kill? The late fees, the stores, or the old profit model? You can't keep all three. Something has to go. And whichever one you choose, something else breaks. That's the trap. That was always the trap. Hit subscribe and let me know.